Hey folks, it's time for TWiP Pro Photo Critique number 37. This is TWiP. Hey, welcome back to another TWiP Pro Photo Critique. This is critique number 37. I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Troy Miller, who's still having a love affair with his Nikon Z7. Before we start, man, I wanna definitely check in on that Z7 love affair you have going on. Last time we spoke, you were going to be doing some work with it, and you've done some work with it. What do you
have.
Do you like it? Does it suck?
Love it.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I really love it. I've shot 4 weddings, 2 engagement sessions, played with it in super low light, strobe lights from the DJ, you know, all that kind of stuff. I've used the SB 5000 strobes with it remotely. I've done all that. I dig it.
5,000 now? Jeez. I remember the last one I bought was an SB 25. Now they're at 5,000.
Yeah. They went up to the SB 910, I think, and then the new strobes are now the SB 5000s, which are all radio controlled and stuff from the camera. So
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you're gonna have to do a review or a write up or something about your experiences with that, the camera, the lens, the whole system, the adapter. I want to hear about all of that.
Yeah. I really wanted to get saturated in it so that if any challenges would reveal themselves before, so it's been good. It's been good though. Yeah. So I got a lot of positive things to say about it. I would just say that anybody that's thinking about it, that's a Nikon shooter, it's going to be a good move. It's a Nikon. It feels like a Nikon. It shoots like a Nikon, and the images and focusing are amazing. So. All
right, cool. Yeah. Apparently Nikon knows what they're doing when it comes to building cameras and lenses and that sort of thing. So
yep.
All right. Yep. Well, we've got a couple of images to go through that have been submit to the TWiP Pro community.
We do.
Let's say we dive in. You think?
Let's do it. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones in here too.
Yeah. There's one by a famous photographer that I know very well. Me.
Infamous photographer.
Famous. Yeah, I put that with tongue in cheek, obviously. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen here. Let's see. I would like to share Safari. Here we go. All right, here we go. The first one looks like it's from Peter Levshin. Good old Peter.
Yeah, he's always doing now he's really into his abstract reflection bizarro stuff that we have to figure out what it is.
I dig it. So this is shot with a Sony A7R II 16mm in London street corner selling pots. Bring that up full screen. Oh, look at that. That's wide.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, that is cool. See, it takes an eye to see that. See, he's looking at reflections and quality of light versus, hey, look at all those pots up there. I love that.
Right. Yeah, no, this is a classic abstract image that I'm just very drawn to. I just think these kind of shots are just amazing because it's sort of a perspective of the world that a lot of people don't stop and see when we walk by those things. So this is definitely in one of my favorite genres.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little punchier. Like I wish there was a little more contrast, like the highlights were a little bit brighter, but because they're reflections, so I would expect the reflections to be a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
But I'm really good with it. I don't know what's going on in the top left corner. It looks.
That was going to be my nit, right? This is the nitpicking critique. So yeah. What's going on? What's up with the dog ear in the top left corner there? So, Peter, tell us what's going on up there.
Peter, fix it.
Yeah, or fix it. Yeah, fix it, definitely. But yeah, I agree. The image itself, I don't know if it's just my display here, but it feels like it has an overall sort of cyan cast to it, greenish cyan to it. That I don't know if it's me or if it was on purpose, but I'd like to see that sort of corrected slightly. And this is like serious nitpicking, Peter, but slightly corrected in the other direction. The patterns, the whole thing, it's awesome. This is the kind of shot that I think is like, you're walking down the streets of London, and you happen upon this scene, and boom, you catch it, while other photographers just meander on by.
And it's wall-worthy. I think this is a wall-worthy kind of image. I like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very nice. And you said wall-worthy. Yeah, that's a new term. We should coin that. Is it wall-worthy? All right, let's see what else we have in here that could be wall-worthy. Here's another one from Peter. This is an infrared shot from his modified A7R2 shot with a 24 to 70 millimeter in Vietnam. He's titled this one "Too Young to Die." Wow, and it's a couple that got married. What's going on?
Okay, this is
what are you trying to say about your marriage, Peter?
This is Peter's sense of humor, everybody. Just because I know a little bit of the story behind this one. So,
do tell, or should we let Peter tell it in the comments?
We'll let Peter tell it in the comments because it's more fun when he tells it because there's an accent.
Yeah, yeah.
But going with the title and not knowing the history, I'd be like, oh man, that's just so sad, Yeah. But Peter has a tendency, and he knows this because I tell him all the time. So I'll just, I'm going to call him out on it. Is his images tend to be a bit muddy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The highlights are muddied up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah,
the highlights are muddied. He likes to push the darks down, and I see that in here. The vignette's a little too heavy, but we need a little bit more spread in that contrast range, the tonal range. Mm-hmm. It's in there. I know it's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I dig the shot. Now I'm really intrigued about what the premise was and what is going on here. Like, was this guy, like, did she pass away and he's sending her out like Vikings? He's gonna put coins on her eyes and light the thing on fire, or what's going on? What is happening, Peter? Inquiring mind want to know. Please tell me.
Yeah, let Peter tell you. I would say this one is not wall-worthy. I'm not going to hang this one.
This is not wall-worthy for you? You would hang it?
No.
Because of the image or because of the story?
It's just not my favorite. It's not something I want to look at every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Corpse Bride. Yeah. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Cool.
Probably not.
But it's creative. It is awesome. It's very creative.
Good composition. I mean, it tells a really good story. I mean, you could go so many different directions with this one. It's handled very well, except for the highlight issue, the blocky highlights. But
yeah. Well, you got to work with Peter on that thing.
You know what? He doesn't always listen to me.
Peter? Not listen? Come on.
No. But when he does, his images get really good. So we'll see what happens.
All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. The next one is from Mike Dorrance, and he's titled this one, "I Never Get Tired of this very cool era in motorsports." This image was created during the fall CSRG Classic held in Sonoma Raceway, or at Sonoma Raceway, up here in Northern Cali. Look at that. Tack sharp. It always blows me away that these guys can get these tack sharp images. So when I'm looking at the car here, my brain automatically obviously goes to, okay, is it in focus? Is there motion blur because this thing is clearly moving really fast? And then I look up and I see some kind of anomaly just above the car. You see that right there?
Yeah.
It looks like Predator is up there trying to hide himself, and get ready to attack or something. Is that what do you think that is? Is a bad clone job or healing job?
Yeah, it's a bad clone stamp. Yeah, I bet you that's the track back there, and there was probably another vehicle on it or something, and then tried to remove it, and yeah, you can totally see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, can see that Photoshop. I mean, you could almost crop that out. I mean, you really don't need it. Crop above that wall.
Right, just like right there, yeah.
Yeah. I would, in motorsports is tough because a lot of times you can't move where you want to move, and, they're moving quickly and you only have a few seconds. But it's always nice to have a little bit more space in front than behind, because that shows us them leaning into the frame. And that's just nice. And if we can get the shutter speed down just enough so that the wheels will blur, but the car doesn't blur, that's like the ideal place to be. So it shows a little bit of sense of motion. But That's my nit. But I love the shot. I love the color combination. I love that the highlights in the hood are not blown out. You can see the grill. You can see some reflection in there. So the exposure's handled phenomenally well. This is definitely an expertly photographed image. This is really nice.
Now, how do you feel about post-processing images like this? So if you get a shot, and I agree with you, by the way, on leaving room in the frame for some, especially something like this, to be moving into the frame, so more space on the left side of the frame than on the right. But you mentioned motion blur. You can add motion blur later, not so much to the spin of the wheels. Well, you could add it to the spin of the wheels, but you could add it to trailing the car just slightly, little bits of motion blur in there just to accentuate the fact that this thing was moving fast. Because when I look at these images, and we've seen some by Stephen Scharf, who's also a motorsports photographer as well. When I look at these images, they're crisp and sharp, and they've nailed the focus and froze the motion, but it's hard to tell that these things were moving at breakneck speed. So then my brain instantly goes to, well, how do you illustrate that other than, okay, I know this thing is a fast vehicle and it's leaning into a turn, so clearly it's going fast. But do you think a little motion blur would have helped it, or is that cheating, or would that have hindered the image?
Well, no, I mean, it depends on how you apply it. So in this case, if you put motion blur on the car, it's not going to look natural, because then technically the whole car would be soft. Yeah. Right? Because that would mean you didn't stop the action of the car. The wheels are moving faster than the body of the car, so that's why the wheels are nice to blur. Yeah. The great way to show motion is to have the background blurred, like in a panning shot. This probably is not a panning shot, or if it is, it's not a huge panning shot. So if you were to blur the foreground and the background, the landscape around it slightly, so it felt like it was moving, that would give you a better sense of motion. But I don't think you could blur the car. I am all for using Photoshop to its fullest extent if it suits your art, if it suits what you're trying to tell. Unless you're going to enter it in photojournalism, or it's a photojournalistic image, then of course there's the integrity behind that. But
yeah, then all pixels are off limits for that kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But if it's an illustrative image, then pixels are born to be punished. So punish them. Yeah. If it's in service of the story you're trying to tell, why? And it's not photojournalistic or street photography, etc. Then why not use the tools that you have at hand to make it to better sell a story? So. Yep.
Yeah, and I love these. I mean, these are awesome. These are great shots. These are handled really well.
Yeah, very good. Good work, Mike Doran. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that stuff is tougher to photograph.
I know. I can't imagine. I haven't even tried it ever in my life, and I imagine I would fail miserably trying to do it. But then, like anything else, you take, you fall and get back up again and keep learning, and pretty soon you got a level of aptitude at it. Here's one from me, Frederick Van Johnson, as challenged by you to shoot something and put it into the critique. And yes, I am shamelessly pandering to your sensibilities for black and white. Although there's nothing post-apocalyptic in this image that, would really sell it. But it is emotion. So I'll tell you what's going on here. I was standing on a log that was straddling a creek. This is like a movie, it was like a big log that was straddling, actually a medium-sized log that was straddling a creek that was at the sort of joining two parts of a trail. So I wanted a shot of a rock like this with water flowing around it, but I also wanted to test the image stabilization features in the Lumix G9, which has in-lens image stabilization as well as 5-axis in-body image stabilization that it can use. They can use both of those together at the same time to give you, almost tripod-like sturdiness. And that's what I did. So I'm literally balancing my dumb butt on this log with camera gear, holding the camera up. Of course, I've got the articulated LCD popped up so I could see the image as I hold it vertically. And I'm just firing off shots with one hand, holding the camera and holding my breath between shots to get this. Now, this was obviously one of, maybe 30 crappy shots, but this one came out and this is the only one I'm sharing. So that's the story behind this. I literally wanted to show the motion rushing around these rocks, and I post-processed this in Lightroom to sort of push it to the limit of just sort of making. Well, it was shot. It was shot obviously with a long shutter speed. I think it was 1/5 of a second. But I processed it in Lightroom to bring out the individual sort of fibers of the water even more to make it look more ethereal or more hair-like. And that was the goal.
I like it. I like how that this image is the intro to your story of you balancing on the log. So really, this isn't about the image anymore. Now it's really about, I stood on this log and I about fell it. Yeah.
It is.
No.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't really any, like, we talk about story all the time. Like, what's the story of this image? This image, the making of this image is actually the story of this particular image. So it was more of a scientific experiment to see if it was possible to do this. I know getting a shot like this back in the film days may have been kind of possible had you brought some sort of support or something with it, but not just serendipity walking across a shaky log, and aiming your camera and holding it and taking the shot. So that's technology.
Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, I totally agree when it comes to the whole amazing equipment thing, because the Z7 is the same way. The image stabilization is the best I have ever held. I've never shot with a G9, but it's the best that I've ever had. So you start to think differently. Yeah. Like, I can hand hold this shot now. I don't have to, I can do stuff that I couldn't do before, getting blurry people or whatever.
Yeah.
But speaking to your image, sir, I really like it. I really like it. So here comes
here's the shit sandwich. Here it goes.
No, it's black and white, and I love the S curve of it. Where the water is coming in, and the way that it makes that sort of S curve. I'm a little distracted by the top left rock, so I'm kind of playing with the crop in my browser. And I think if you crop below the top rock, and now you have almost a square format, and it puts the big rock right on thirds in sort of a square format, and to me that feels a lot better. It's a little simpler. It's that one single rock with the water ripping around it. So that would really be my only critique, is just to maybe clip that top off a little bit.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree. I was playing around with actually taking that top rock, the top rock out altogether, and just adding water over there. Because it would have been relatively easy to add water, because this is high frequency, high pattern sort of nature going on in there. So it would have been easy to clone that rock out of there and make it look fairly realistic. But then I decided to leave it in there. I'm going to leave it in there and see what Troy Miller says about my off-balance image. No, yeah. I dig it though. I dig it. Yeah, it's cool. You're right. It's like doing this kind of stuff makes with these modern cameras literally makes you feel like you have superpowers, especially if you've grown up shooting film.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my first epiphany with this stuff was let me bring us both back up on the screen. My first epiphany was when I first started shooting mirrorless was, wait a minute, you mean I can change my ISO? What is that about? I can't believe what kind of witchcraft is this? I can change my ISO without swapping out the film or making sure I shoot all the remaining frames of this roll of film before I swap out for a different ISO. So that was crazy. And now it's just image stabilization stuff and low light stuff, and just the lenses are insane. So yeah, superpowers, man. We have superpowers.
Yep. And we need to, it's good that we know what our cameras are capable of. Mm-hmm. So we're standing in a situation, we can say, I'm going to do a quick focus stack of this, or I'm going to do a quick HDR, or I'm going to do a pano, okay, well, you don't need a tripod anymore, right? Because they're good. Yep. And even at Photoshop, stacking them, or Lightroom stacking them together to make a pano. So you just, okay, back to the ceremony, Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it.
Gives you more tools in your tool belt.
Mm-hmm, for sure. All right, moving right along. Stephen Scharf is our next contestant on The Price is Right. Stephen says, let me bring this one up. So Stephen says, this is Stephanie Kim channeling some inspiration from Tim Engel. Here's a photo I took of ballet dancer Stephanie Kim. at the Fujifilm Festival. Fujifilm X-H1 and 18 to 55 millimeter lens at 1/1000th of a second at f5 ISO 1000. Let's bring Stephanie up here. All right. Geez, look at those calves. Jeez.
I know. I commented in this and I said, I would have bet the body couldn't do that. If I hadn't seen the photo, I'd be like,
jeez, she's got to be in shape. God, look at that. That's like a bicep on her leg.
yeah, that's
great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
What do you
amazing.
think of the shot?
You know, I really like the shot. I like the symmetry. I like the balance. I like that the background has been burned down a little bit. I can see that. You know, this is one of those hard kind of images because it's in a place that you couldn't control. Mm-hmm. So if I was going to really, really, really work this image, I would fix the ground and clean up the spots and, you know, hide some of those distracting elements. And I would maybe consider black and white. Mm-hmm. I think that her shape and form in there would really, really do well in like a contrasty black and white. But that's not an absolute. I just think that it's wonderfully balanced, centered, square. You know, it's the symmetry is killer.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, I was looking at this image and I was thinking this would be awesome for a composite work. Like, because you can, you know, depending on your skill level in Photoshop, you could pop her out of that background and put her somewhere else, you know, or it could be interesting to have her. And if you have to do it convincingly and make it look awesome, because it'd be easy to fail on this. So you'd have to, you know, make sure you match the light sources and direction and shadows and all that. But taking her out of there and putting her in an interesting, precarious situation, like balancing on a telephone line or something, would be kind of cool, right?
Right. Yeah. So this image reminds me of a show that was on TV for a while called Falling Skies, and they had these weird aliens in there, and they walk like that.
I remember that. There's kind of a B-level TV series, right, where they're hiding from the aliens and they had sympathetic aliens that they were working with and all that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Oh, I loved it. I loved that series. Loved it.
Yeah, it was kind of a referendum on real life, though.
Yeah, this is what this reminded me of that. But you know, to Steven, you know, great shot, great capture.
Yep.
I'm curious how long she was able to hold that. Was that like a jump position, you know, where she got to that position then came back down, or was she literally able to hold it for even a microsecond while you took the shot? You know, because I know for ballet dancers, it's very tough to stay on their toes, and it's not good for them to stay on their toes for very long. Yeah. So they don't, you know, like for posing, they can't stay there for a long time. Sure. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at her face. She doesn't seem fazed by this at all, man. I think she could stay like that all day.
You know what? This is one of those images that you clean it up and you tune it up the best you can, and then you print it and you send it to her. Because that's an amazing pose.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a pose and an amazing expression on her face as well.
Yeah,
they dig it. Cool. Stephen Sharp at it again. Look at him. All right. So moving right along, Craig Stampley from Down Under, more of the Gap at Night. I'm up to just under 50 images so far. However, not all are worth showing. All right, here we go. Here's another long exposure. Look at that. What do you think?
Yeah, it needs to be rotated a little bit to the right.
It's tilted.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the knit. It needs to be rotated a little bit to the right. You can just looking at the pillars on the house and stuff over here.
Trees, yeah.
But I'm not opposed to the lean, though. I mean, it's downhill, and I kind of like that. So it just kind of depends on what his preference is. I love this series. I mean, all the images that you're showing, Craig, they're all great, and they're all my favorites. So not just because they're black and white.
Oh, you know I was going to say that. Thank you for.
Yeah, I know. But I think it's an interesting series because, you know, when you drive down streets at night or you see these things, we don't stop and photograph them, just like the details that Peter photographed.
Yeah.
This is an uncommonly seen scene, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. You know, at nighttime in the streets and the streaks, and then in black and white. Ooh.
Yeah, it's an uncommonly seen seen through the eyes of Craig Stampley. You know, and sort of executed in how this is how I want to see my world. You know, so yeah, I dig it. Yeah,
this is also a great lesson in that if all of us were to go out and photograph together the same locations, we would all have different work. We would all come back with different things, right?
Yeah. for sure. Yeah, that's hopefully we would. Yeah. That is cool. All right. Thank you, Craig Stanfley. That was shot in Brisbane, Australia. All right, moving right along here. Howard Yemish is our next contestant. Walden Pond Sky. Yes, actually at Walden Pond. There you go. Look at that. All right. I want to see what you say about this one, Mr. Black and white. And you see how people are pandering to you now, right?
No.
Done?
It's not pandering, my friend. They are beginning to see in monochrome.
Oh, right? Okay. Got it.
Can I take responsibility for that?
You can. Yeah, responsibility or blame, whatever.
They all knew
what the position is.
They all knew it already. I just sort of drove it home a little bit.
But in all seriousness, you're 100% right, though. I mean, if color is not adding to an image, we say try it without it, and you may end up with a stronger image with more obvious graphical elements in that image.
Yeah. No, I love this. I love this cloud pattern. These are some of my favorite shots to do, or just clouds barely above the skyline. I mean, I just really, really, really enjoy that. Mm-hmm. I think that we could trim the water out to a sliver. So it's a little bit of foreground, then the trees, then the sky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at this image. I like it too. But then I go to, back to what's the subject? Not that every landscape has to have a subject, but this one I struggle with. Does the sky want my attention? Does the tree line or that sort of beach want my attention, or does the water want my attention? So I want to either emphasize or minimize two of those elements and emphasize one of them somehow. And then the other thing is this feels to me like it wants to be wider. Like, I don't know, either by cropping the sky down or actually physically going wider with the shot. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm like, that's kind of where I'm netting out at. Like, I'm like, what is if this was hanging up somewhere, I'd be like, okay, what's the subject? Is Godzilla coming over those trees?
I really think that images like this, if they're printed really large, mm-hmm. then they work for scale, right? Because, our brains are looking at this thinking like, well, how far away is that shore? Because we don't have any perspective. Like, there's not a little boat out there telling us how far away it is. I can see the beach over there, and I could presume of how small a person might be. But if this image was printed really big, it would feel like you just walked and you're standing on the actual dock or the shore looking across. So I think
perspective,
I think size in this image would really help a lot. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can't obviously look at it as a 6-foot print, here. Mm-hmm. But
Howard, try to print this 6 foot wide, hang it up, and then take a picture of it. Let us see what it looks like hanging on your living room wall. But,
well, when we're doing this in VR, then it'll work. Right.
Oh, right, because you just walk and look around. I thought you were going to say, actually, about this image, I thought you were going to nit about the blacks over there on the left of the tree line. Does that get you at all? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I understand that it's a deep shadow, and I don't think you're going to be able to pull a lot of detail back out of that. And if you do, I don't think that is going to really add to the image a whole lot.
Yeah.
I think for me that the tree line is really secondary to this whole image. It's more the clouds. So it doesn't bother me. I might play with it if I was going to go edit it for competition or a fine image kind of thing. I might see what I could do to create more equal balance in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, if that's pure shadow and it's pure black, then that's what
not much you can do. Right. Cool. All right.
It's zoned out.
Thank you, Howard. All right. Moving up. Here's another one from Howard. This is reflecting on Walden Pond. Yes, also at Walden Pond. This is a much more abstract than I usually post, so experimenting with the color, shapes, and emotions. I like this. Yeah, I like these kind of abstracts. And water is like, your brain wants to connect the dots of, okay, I know that there's some diffraction going on. So what is that underneath it? Let me decode that thing underneath the surface of the water. But shooting right through it too. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I don't have a whole lot of negative or anything negative to say about it. What about you?
It's wall worthy. Yeah, it's really nice. I would say that when you're shooting these, do two different focus points. Like, one, try to focus on the reflection. And that can be really tough because that's usually above, where the rocks are, and then try one where you focus on the rocks. I tend to like them when you focus on the reflection and then the rocks kind of fall out. Depends on how deep the water is. Yeah. And I would also say in this image, I think you can push the blacks down a little bit more, and that would increase the saturation, the blue reflection, and bring out some of the warm tones and create more depth in here. But for experimenting, I mean, this is where you go, right? Like you play with it, you practice it, you figure out how to edit it. I think this one can handle a little bit more processing.
Cool. Very nice. All right. Howard's on a roll here.
Howard's on a roll. I know.
Yep. Knocking them out. All right, here's one from Mark Harris. And Mark Harris says, "This Pieta. This whole session was energizing. I'd worked with each of these models earlier in the year. They wanted to work together in this apartment, and I readily agreed. It was shot with a Nikon D850 Zeiss 28mm f2.0 at f10 at 1/320th of a second, ISO 6400. Note that the model in red, Z the Bug, identifies as trans male, so please refer to him that way. The other model is Sienna Luna." All right, let's bring this up. All right, here we go. This is more photojournalistic, right? Photojournalistic or portraiture, or how would you categorize this one?
Well, it could be either one. It would really depend on the intent of the artist.
Drama. I mean, yeah, it's almost like drama, right?
Yeah, so you could see this image in an article that's maybe speaking to family life or their environment or something of that nature. This would work really well. But it could also be a portrait session where they're trying to tell the story of these two people, maybe their relationship, the interaction of the two, those kind of things. So it's really hard for us to know which one this should be.
But from a judging standpoint, if you put on your judging sort of hat and you look at it, you're gonna judge it differently based on what category you're slotting it into. In other words, if you're looking at this as photojournalism, you're gonna let things go because it's photojournalism and you can't touch anything in the image. Versus if you say this is in the portraiture category, and both of these models look, you should have more light on the model up top, and then the model below should have so and so, right? How would you judge this? First of all, what category would you slot this into if this was going into competition? And then how would you judge it in that particular category?
So I would say this one was submitted, we'll just call it that, in photojournalism. And the reason is because the light on the background, from the window, those things have not been removed. So because they've been left there, that must mean that it's in that category. Can't, because in the portrait category, the expectation is you can do anything you want, and that doesn't add to the image. So you would have cleaned that up, maybe cleaned the wall up a little bit, those kind of things. Okay. So in that situation, though, even being in photojournalism, I would really, I wonder, why they're not making eye contact. I mean, I would love to have seen a little bit of eye contact as opposed to just sort of, staring off into space. Yeah. I think that would help a lot. But then again, in photojournalism, I don't know what the story is.
Right. Yeah, that's why I say, you look at shots like this and it makes you want to know what's going on. So stories, even if you're shooting this, what I'd want to see with this image is a short paragraph, even if it's fiction. This is if this was sort of a drama shot that the photographer was trying to illustrate something. What are you illustrating? Is it drug abuse? Is it this? Is it a lover's quarrel? Is it whatever? And even if it's fictional, a little short paragraph would take your brain on a journey. You're like, oh, now I know why she's looking out into space, or now I know why, she's looking down at her. So you just have that sort of basis in reality versus having your brain have to connect the dots and interpolate what the situation is. I think you're making the viewer work to interpolate what's going on. And people can disagree with me because you go into the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and that's what it's all about, right? You see a pile of, horse poop on the ground and it's art, and you have to interpret what it's about. Right?
Yeah.
But I think we as image makers, storytellers, photographers, whatever you want to call yourself, we have the ability to not have to make the viewer make that leap into figuring out what the story is about. I don't know. What do you think?
True. And even in fine art, a lot of times it's put into context. Yeah. It's, you know, this is this exhibition. This is what this exhibition is about. So when you walk in there, you have a sense of what the artist is trying to say. And I think what we're trying to get at is that if you just show an image that the viewer can't figure out the story on its own, that may be challenging to your art. That doesn't mean you can't do that.
Right.
But if you want your viewer to sort of get what you're showing, sometimes context can really help, or a paragraph.
In art, and everything's subjective, right? Because in art, you look at, you know, who's art, like a graffiti artist, like Banksy, for example, right? So are you familiar with Banksy?
Nope.
All right, well, so you're not cool. So Banksy, Banksy is. You should watch this documentary on Netflix. But he's a graffiti artist, and no one knows what he looks like. But he's notorious for leaving this sort of ethereal art around, and in fact, one of his pieces sold for a lot of money just recently, and then shredded itself. So it's a whole story. Anyway, but looking at his stuff, there's a whole narrative behind his work in general, which is sort of counterculture and, you know, Rage Against the Machine and, you know, all that kind of thinking. And that's what the base storyline of his work is. So when he releases another piece or someone comes across another Banksy piece, you know, it sort of fits into that narrative. But if you're coming in cold, you don't have that luxury of saying, well, hey, this is you know, John Doe. I was going to say Troy Miller, but people know your work. But, you know, it says John Doe coming in and like, okay, here's my work and you figure it out. If you can't figure it out, you're an idiot. You know, I don't think most of us have that luxury to make that leap. You know, we have to give people a little bit of help and say, this is what I was trying to say in this image.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, to speak to the image again, it's a wonderful image. It's got a lot of emotion. You know, it's great. The environment that it's in. All the things that we talked about, like what's really the story the photographer's trying to tell us. I think we want to know that. Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving right along. Thank you, Mark Harris, for that submission. All right, Thomas Aaron is up next. Thomas says, this was from the old T3i I had prior to my 5D Mark III. It was shot at 1/60th of a second at 4.5 ISO 100 at 135 millimeters with the cheap kit lens. All right, let's bring this guy up. Look at that guy.
Yeah, he's bored. He's either tired and worn out, or he's bored.
He's like, how much longer do I have to put up with these?
How much longer? Yeah.
Can I eat this guy? Can I just eat him? I love it because he does look kind of berry, right? He looks like those ears look like bear ears almost. And looking at the image, you look at the thumbnail, and because of the colorations or the contrast of the hair, it almost looks solarized. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to comment on initially, just from the thumbnail. And then I'm like, well, let's look at the photo. It does. I mean, it may have been pushed in process a little bit, but no, it's really cool. One thing, you know, with pet portraits is their nose is part of their face. So not always required, but it's.
I was going to say
nice.
Most mammals, their nose is part of their face. I'm just saying. I mean, if you want to split hairs here. But I don't know if there's a mammal with a nose on its neck or anything.
Well, you never know. So it's a good idea, if possible, in photographing your puppies and stuff, is try to get that nose in focus.
Yeah.
Because it would be just like a person, right? Like why do we have this blurry bump?
Yep.
You know. But I mean, it works here, but it's just in general.
Yeah, I mean, it works here because this is relatively symmetrical, right? And it's sort of guiding your eyes up the ramp of his nose to the dog's eyes, right? But yeah. I 100% agree. Like, an animal like this, I want to see the nose sharp and the eyes sharp. So I don't know if it's possible the way he was shooting this with that kit lens, but yeah, I would love to see that. But I love the processing on this too. I do. It's really cool. It doesn't seem overdone, doesn't seem underdone, and it has like I said, it has that solarized feel to it when it may have been processed sort of that way, but it's right on the edge. It's right on the edge.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely highlights and shadows, and it's you know, there's a lot of tonal in there. You just don't see it. Yeah, that's a great image. I love it. I love it. He just looks very, very unhappy.
If Thomas Aaron, if you've intended this to be as part of the pets critique that we're doing at the end of the month, make sure that you submit this as part of the comments on that pet post that's earlier in the photo critique topic, or else we'll miss it.
That's right.
All right, here's another one from Thomas Aaron. He says, a Phoenix, or is it his 5D Mark III, 1/5 of a second, f/16, ISO 100, 200 millimeters. Look at that abstract in the sky.
Yeah,
nice.
Put this image in your portfolio folder. Like this is definitely my favorite image out of this whole set this time. This is amazing.
Yep. The only thing I say is clone out some of that those dust spots in there. See, there's one on the left, and I think there's another one on the right there. I'd like under the wing. So yeah. Clone those out. And is that on my screen or is that on the? Oh, that was on my screen. Never mind. Yeah,
I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, that could be on my screen too. I don't know.
That was actually, there's nothing on the right. That was actually on my screen. So I take that. Wait, no, they were all on my screen. My screen is filthy. I shouldn't have sneezed before we did the show. There's no dust spots in here. This is flawless. Very cool. Look at that. Yeah, I don't see any errors in here.
It looks a little heavily processed. Like there's some, I don't know, maybe it's just the way it's coming through, but along the wings, there's a dark shadow area, and it definitely, to me, looks like the clarity's been pushed too far or something, or that, you know, it's creating some artifacting right there.
I don't know. I mean, that doesn't bother me. I actually like it. I like it from the standpoint of it is intentionally abstract, yet you can still tell what it is.
Well, I think that in an image like this, it was all smooth motions. So, you know, if though, you know, and I can't tell from here, but if those lines or those tonal areas are not smooth and they've sort of started to block up a little bit or create some artifacts, I think that's going to sort of kill the image when you print it, or when you know, because then, oh, where's all the smooth? The smooth is interrupted by, you know, digital artifacts.
Sure.
But
sure. Cool. This one definitely would look nice big, I think, right? Hanging on the wall.
Oh, yeah. I am curious though, Thomas, if this was something that, you know, you did by accident, like were you shooting something else and you just, you know, pointed it up at the bird and just like, oh, it looks all blurry, and oh wait, but it looks good. Or was this something that you were working at? Like, was this a vision that you had and you decided, you know, I'm going to work on this today?
Yeah. Not that it matters that much, but yeah, it's still cool. I dig it. All right, moving right along from Phoenix, Tim Engel in the house. Tim Engel says, let me make sure I get this thing up. The light was reflected with a large mirror. I think he's saying the pattern is from a wood vanity screen I got at a yard sale. See that? MacGyver in the house. No.
This makes me laugh, right? Because that description from Tim could have ended with, this is a pattern. It's a patter, right? Yeah. We missed the end there. Is from a wood vanity screen. He could have stopped there, but no. No, he's going to rub it in that it was from a yard sale.
Yep. Tim, you know, the only thing you're doing here is when, you know, one of these Fortune 100 companies hires you and they've seen these videos, they're going to be like, well, you can do this job for $20, right, man? Here, just go to Home Depot. Here's my card. You know, Tim has proven that he can do more than most with less than most. So.
Right. Westcott's going to start having a display section in Home Depot now.
Yeah, you know, that's not a bad
the Engel modifiers by Westcott.
Yeah, exactly. Shop lights and plywood and white paint. You're good to go.
Yeah.
I like this. I dig it. I don't have any, you know, we teased him about cutting limbs off all the time, but I think in this case it's fine that he did a slight amputation on this model. I think I like this. The eyes are fantastic. I'm drawn right into the eyes.
I would take down her left hand, the highlight on her left hand a little bit, because I think it's competing with her face a little bit too much. It doesn't need to be much. It doesn't need to be a lot, just a little bit, just so that the tonal difference is there. So her face is the first key point, then her hand would be second, and then her chest or her neckline, where we can see detail in there, would be like the second or third. But it's great, the intentional, the mouth is showing, you can see the lips, there's the eyes have come through in that space. That shows a lot of thought and intention. The exposure is fantastic.
Yep.
I love it.
I'm gonna have to. If you're going down the road of saying, I'd like to see this in black and white, I'm gonna have to say no. I want to see the blonde hair, the red lipstick, the green touch. I want to see all that in this shot. I think it's.
I wouldn't say that, because everybody's already hearing me say it, and it's still legitimate. It would look good in black and white.
It's your stump speech.
It's my stump speech. Yeah. Yeah,
I dig it. Cool. Thank you, Tim, for participating. This is fantastic. I love that. It's like vampire eyes on this woman.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least is from Mr. Drake White. He posted this 6 hours ago. And this is with his Fuji X-T2 60mm natural light irradiant post processing. I saw this, and this image does to me instantly. I feel it in my my little, my taste buds down in the bottom of my throat here. It's like, oh, I know this is like pain personified right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No,
Give me your nitpick. I know you got nitpicks.
Crop a little bit from the left. That way it's more balanced, because it's tight on the right. But other than that, I really struggle with that out of focus pepper at the bottom. Like, if this was a commercial image, I could score it really high if that out of focus pepper wasn't there.
Yeah.
I just don't think that
it's two at the top, just kind of the yin yang.
Yeah. I just don't think it adds to the image, and it could easily be cloned out in this image, because it's white. I love the subtle reflection of the peppers, the shallow depth of field. I like how that's all working in this. I think that's fantastic. I just think that a lower pepper just doesn't add. I think it's distracting.
Yeah. I agree with removing that lower pepper. The other thing is, I'd want to. What also bugs me is the far rear pepper is in sharp focus and the stem's in sharp focus, but the middle one is not. It's slightly soft. I think I'd want to see like that middle one either sharp focus, get rid of the one at the bottom, sharp focus on the middle one, and the far one can be slightly soft, or even reverse them so that the stem is in the middle, because that gives you the visual color contrast of the greens and the reds, and have the other, the tail of the other one up top, so that, the sort of the stem and the fact that this is a pepper, a dried pepper, comes through loud and clear. But
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love the close-up work on this.
Yeah, macro food stuff is really tough. It's not easy. One, just getting the shot, but two, getting them aligned and composited and moved around and styled in a way that works for the shot.
Yeah.
I would definitely, if I was shooting this, I would definitely do this in a focus stack. I would shoot many images through, and then in post, you can actually decide where the focus begins and ends. So like in this one, you could have made that, we'll call it the middle pepper. You could have made that one in focus all the way through and then stopped at the stem of the back one and let it fall out of focus from there.
Yep.
And it would, that's the challenge with shooting food or doing any kind of macro, is where do you want your eye to go?
Yeah.
And it's the sharp point. So looking at this image and just being conscious of where your eye is going, you're going to bounce to the stem on the left and to the back stem on the right, and to the stem on the left and the back stem on the right, because that's where they're in focus.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And the just one other thing, I got to brag about my camera because I love my G9. It has built-in focus stacking, so you can go focus stacking mode, and it will analyze the scene and go through and snap, several images at all focal lengths or at all focus points, and then stack them together inside the camera. And then on the back of the LCD, you can drag your finger to, have things in focus or not in focus, or tap what you want to be in focus, even if it's multiple points, and then export that and, you know, back out to the SD card while you're still shooting. So it's
yeah.
And then it also gives you all the shots that it took to make that stacked image, which you can then, like you said, load into Lightroom or Photoshop and stack them there if you want.
Yeah. I know that the Z7 and the 850 will do focus stacking and then create all those images and drop them in a folder. I don't know what the Z7 does as far as like any kind of processing, but see, that's what all of our cameras are missing, right? All that software, all that cool stuff that our phones can do.
Yes.
And the G9, like, it's software, man.
I know.
Put that in my camera.
Put it in the camera. I agree. 100%. All right, Drake White, thank you for that. I think that's it. You know, let me reload the page.
Oh yeah, we always got to reload because there's always.
Yeah, let me go ahead and reload real quick because there's always the stragglers that sneak in there. So reloading. Looks like that might be it. Date created.
Yep,
that was it. That was the last one. Cool. All right, we got through them. Thanks everyone for your submissions this week. Some hot stuff. You know, especially Drake White with that jalapeno. Is that a jalapeno? It's just a red pepper. That's cool. I like the abstract stuff that we're seeing in there now too, and I like the way we started with Peter and his abstracts, and you know we kind of had an abstract theme running through the entire critique this week, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and that's definitely in my wheelhouse. I love that. Post-apocalyptic, abstract, and then black and white. I'm in.
We should do that. We should do one like when your birthday's coming up. We should do a homage to Troy Miller like contest where it's got to be post-apocalyptic. It's got to be black and white. And what's the other one you like? Post-apocalyptic, black and white, abstract.
And abstract.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's next month.
There you go. Yeah, you turned 21. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, you can drink finally.
I turned 25 for the 27th time or something like that.
There you go. I stopped counting. I stopped counting at 75. So you know, I'm all done. You know, just keep the embalming fluid coming, and you know, I could stay this age. So cool, man. All right. Anything you wanna share with the audience before we sign off this time?
No, we're doing good. TWiP Pro, keep cranking. Yeah. A lot of good conversation in there, and a lot of good images, even in the show and tell. I mean, for those that are just only watching this, I mean, you're only seeing a fraction of the images that run through TWiP Pro. I mean, the show and tell is great.
Yeah, there's another party right over there, right next door. You can bounce back and forth between the parties. Yeah, it's cool stuff. And I want to personally thank everyone for their participation in TWiP Pro. I'm blown away every week at the talent that's in there, the caliber of conversations that are going on in there, and the influx of new members that we're getting all the time. So it's encouraging. It helps us keep things going on This Week in Photo, and these critiques are fun to do. So you know, the community is turning out like I anticipated. So right. So and didn't you, just to like full credit given, weren't you the one that talked me into doing the community? Was it you, or was it it might have been Tim Engel? So
it was probably many different influences, because we've talked about. I
think it was a chorus, and then I think there was maybe a last straw. They're like, okay, everybody's talking about a community. Let me see, and then it was a journey to find the right community platform to do TWiP Pro.
Yeah, I remember.
A lot of work, but it's paying off. So I'm happy.
Yep.
All right, man. All right, that's it for this TWiP Pro photo critique. This was number 37. I'll see you next week, Troy Miller.
You got it. All right.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
Peace. This is TWiP.